Three people from Xiansong walked out of Su's mansion. Just as they were about to head back, suddenly, a familiar interstellar signal came. He knew it was a message from the Earth Book fragment. Taoist Golden Lotus asked, "How is your cultivation?" Su Qian replied, "I just happen to need a hearty battle. Maybe I can break through and reach the 5th rank in the heat of battle." Taoist Golden Lotus said, "Very good. 5th rank, 5th warrior, is the true entry into the hall, fearless of the masses." Su Qian interrupted, "Let's not talk about this for now. Black Lotus is colluding with Yuanjing Emperor. If he finds out I'm the Earth Book fragment holder, then Yuanjing Emperor will know too. If they join forces afterward, I'll be in big trouble. How can I temporarily sever the recognition bond with the Earth Book fragment?" Su Qian's concerns were indeed very necessary. If Black Lotus doesn't know I'm the Earth Book fragment holder, then the hatred won't be too high. Most importantly, that day in Chuzhou City, Black Lotus knew that mysterious powerhouse was the Earth Book fragment holder. So if I participate in the Lotus Seed defense battle, there are only two paths to take. The first is to conceal everything about Su Qian, but this method has significant drawbacks. I can't use the Black Gold Longsword. I can't perform the Diamond Divine technique, and the Divine Book has fallen into slumber. My lifelong skills can't be utilized. How can I protect the Lotus Seed? The second is to sever the master recognition bond with the Earth Book fragment. That way, the reason Su Qian appears in Jianzhou is because he was invited by Li Miaojin and Chu Yuanjin, not as the Earth Book fragment holder. Taoist Golden Lotus said, "When you arrive in Jianzhou, I'll help you sever the master bond. The Earth Book's secret technique cannot be passed on. I hope you understand. Of course, if you're willing to take me as your master, that won't be an issue." Su Qian pursed his lips. "Why does everyone want to be my master? You'd better talk to my 4 teachers at Yunlu Academy first. See if they agree." The next morning, Su Qian rode his beloved little mare, heading to the Night Watcher's office. Along the way, many familiar silver and bronze gongs waved at him, but no one came forward to greet him. It wasn't because they were snobbish, but showing excessive enthusiasm could secretly get reported. The Night Watchers are the ones who do such things. Only Wei Yuan didn't need to care about Yuanjing Emperor's opinion. Even though Su Qian was no longer a Night Watcher, the bond of camaraderie remained. So he quickly met Wei Yuan in the familiar tea room on the 7th floor. Su Qian said, "Duke Wei, Taoist Golden Lotus of the Earth Sect asked me to pass a message. The 9-colored lotus is about to mature. He hopes you can lend a hand. He'll offer 2 lotus seeds as payment." Su Qian remained as respectful as ever. He didn't explain what the 9-colored lotus was, because with Wei Yuan's knowledge, there's no way he wouldn't know about the 9-colored lotus. Wei Yuan was one of the most learned people he'd ever met. Even the female scholar Huaiqing paled in comparison. Wei Yuan gently said, "One is enough. I'll send Qianro to help. But it'll only be her. No other Night Watchers will go." He asked mysteriously, "Where?" Su Qian answered truthfully, "In Jianzhou." Wei Yuan pondered and said, "I'll get you a dossier on the Martial Alliance later. The 9-colored lotus maturing in Jianzhou. The Martial Alliance, as the local power, won't ignore it. They might even try to seize it." Su Qian nodded and then asked, "Duke Wei, have you ever heard of a man named Su Heng?" Wei Yuan frowned, muttering the name a few times, vaguely recalling it, but he couldn't quite place it at the moment. "Why do you ask about this person?" Su Qian said, "He's real. A Jinshi scholar from the 29th year of Yuanjing. 14 years ago, he was demoted to Jiangzhou as governor. The next year, he was executed for corruption and bribery. He's the father of a friend of mine. I promised to help him uncover the truth behind his father's execution." Wei Yuan countered, "Is there a problem?" He suddenly felt a bit curious. A high official executed for corruption and bribery wasn't anything unusual. Every imperial examination cycle saw similar officials fall. Su Qian replied, "I learned from a secret channel. This man was brought down by the Wang faction and Duke Chao, along with many noble relatives and clans." Wei Yuan thought for a moment, shook his head, and said, "Your information is wrong. I don't recall such a case from over 20 years ago." Su Qian's pupils slightly contracted. His thoughts surged and boiled over. Wei Yuan should know. It doesn't make sense. Within the court, how could there be something he didn't know? He felt like he'd grasped something, but the inspiration flashed and vanished. He ultimately chose to stay silent, waiting to gather more clues and speculations before discussing it further with Wei Yuan. Su Qian saluted, "Duke Wei, I'd like to check this person's files in the archives." Wei Yuan nodded and said, "Fine, I'll give you a handwritten note." The 3-day deadline arrived quickly. Su Qian waited in a private room at the tavern for a quarter of an hour. Chief Constable Chun and the Dali Temple Minister arrived one after another. Both were in plain clothes with simple disguises. Chief Constable Chun took out a dossier from his chest, handed it to Su Qian. One is from the 14th year of Yuanjing. The other is from the 15th year of Yuanjing. Su Qian opened the dossier and read it carefully. Yuanjing 14th year dossier. Grand Secretary of the Eastern Pavilion Su Heng accepted bribes. Covered up subordinates embezzling disaster relief grain, leading to countless famine victims starving to death. Demoted to Jiangzhou. Yuanjing 15th year dossier. Grand Secretary of the Eastern Pavilion Su Heng also accepted bribes. Someone went to the capital to file a complaint. The court investigated, found it true, and executed him. Su Qian furrowed his brows. Su Hang was actually a Grand Secretary of the Eastern Pavilion, but Duke Chao's secret letter mentioned the Su faction. He asked in confusion, Lord Si Chung, how long have you been an official in the court? The Dali Temple minister raised his cup and took a sip, smiled slightly, and said, 25 years. Su Qian asked, then why don't you remember Grand Secretary of the Eastern Pavilion Su Hang? The Dali Temple minister's face suddenly stiffened. Holding his cup, he stared blankly. Yeah, why don't I remember a Grand Secretary from the cabinet? Why do I have no impression of this Su Hang person at all? Su Qian raised his cup without asking more, inviting the two to drink and eat. These days, you don't need to worry about drunk driving rules, even if he got blackout drunk. Lying on his little mare, the mare could still carry him clip-clopping back to Su's mansion, after eating and drinking their fill. Su Qian didn't see off the Dali Temple minister and Chief Constable Chen. He just watched them open the private room's door and leave. Su Qian, slightly tipsy, looked at the dossier and fell into thought. The Dali Temple and the Ministry of Justice both have dossiers, but the Night Watcher's office doesn't, based on the timeline. Duke Wei hadn't taken charge of the Night Watchers back then. He only truly took power after the Shanghai Pass campaign, and Su Hang died 23 years ago. The Shanghai Pass campaign happened 20 years ago. Su Hang was a Grand Secretary of the Eastern Pavilion, but neither the Dali Temple minister nor Duke Wei remember him, not just them. I asked Duke Chao's soul again, and even he doesn't remember Su Hang. Thinking of the mysteriously missing word in the secret letter, 4 words popped into Su Qian's mind, shielding the heavens. Subconsciously, he thought this was related to treacherous politics, but he vaguely felt this guess lacked evidence, and lacked corresponding logic. As he kept thinking, he yawned on the table, and fell asleep naturally. During the process, there wasn't the slightest hint or sense of oddity. A quarter of an hour later, he slowly woke up. Rubbing his eyes, he groggily said, I actually fell asleep. The Dali Temple minister and Chief Constable Chun are gone. This Su Hang case is really troublesome. There's not a single clue. I wouldn't have promised Susu if I'd known. Early knowing, I wouldn't have agreed to Susu. Isn't it because he's just too pretty? Otherwise, I wouldn't bother racking my brain. He seemed to have forgotten everything from earlier. Stretching lazily, he left the private room, happily heading home. Over at the Imperial Palace, the old eunuch pulled out a memorial, respectfully saying, Your Majesty, urgent matter. Emperor Yuanjing took it, unfolded the note, and glanced at it. A spark flashed in his deep pupils. He muttered to himself, 9-colored lotus seed. Emperor Yuanjing tucked away the note. He ordered, Notify Wei Yuan. Have him come to the palace to see me. Forget it. No need. Notify Duke Huai's spies. Head to Jianzhou immediately to seize the 9-colored lotus seed. They can cooperate with the Earth Sect Taoists. Bring as many magical artifacts as possible. The old eunuch respectfully acknowledged. Bowing, he slowly backed out. Over at Su Mansion, Su Qian was carefully reviewing the documents retrieved from the archives. Jianzhou is located in the northwest of Dafeng. Shilin Liizhou borders Jiangzhou to the north, and because 2 major trade routes pass through Jianzhou, it prospers like a sea of flowers. But what Jianzhou is most famously talked about is its unique regional culture, the martial alliance. Throughout history, the attitude toward martial world organizations has been mainly recruitment or suppression. The obedient are recruited, the disobedient are suppressed or eradicated. This maintains dynastic rule and keeps the world at peace. But there are always exceptions. Jianzhou's martial alliance is a martial world organization that can, to some extent, stand fearless of the court. Since ancient times, Jianzhou has had a deep martial culture. Gangs are fierce. Among them are many century-old establishments that stand unshaken. These gangs fall under the martial alliance's jurisdiction. But these gangs alone aren't enough to support the martial alliance's current status. To trace its origins, one must look to history books. At the end of the Great Zhou, the people lived in misery. Heroes across the land rose up, attempting to overthrow the tyranny. Before the Dafeng emperor rose to prominence, he was just one of countless rebel forces, rallying a few hundred troops, mainly attacking small counties, then recruiting more soldiers and horses. At that time, several rebel armies had already gained momentum, possessing the power to dominate a region. One such force came from Jianzhou. The leader of this Jianzhou rebel army was a third-rank warrior. He rose during the chaotic era, fighting everywhere without a single defeat. Later, the founding Dafeng emperor emerged, becoming one of the main forces to overthrow the tyranny. After Great Zhou fell, various forces vied for the Central Plains. The court had already been toppled. To avoid further bloodshed, that third-rank warrior from Jianzhou challenged Dafeng's founder, staking their armies as the wager. In a contest of martial honor, the result goes without saying. The Jianzhou third-rank warrior lost. As per the agreement, he handed his army over to Dafeng's founder, taking only his core subordinates, returning to Jianzhou to establish the martial alliance. That third-rank warrior passed away centuries ago, but the martial alliance has always claimed he's still alive. This is the true foundation of the martial alliance's confidence. Su Qian felt, there's an undeniable flaw here. According to the founder of the martial alliance was a third-rank master, who lost to Dafeng's founder, but the founder has long returned to the earth. So how is he still alive? It doesn't make sense that the stronger one died, while the weaker one still lives. They're both warriors, both rough soldiers. Why can you live for centuries? Su Qian followed this train of thought, suddenly noticing a detail he'd overlooked before. Emperor Wuzong usurped the throne under the pretext of purging the military, a peak martial hero. But he passed away after a century. From the cases of Dafeng's founder and Emperor Wuzong, both emperors. It seems warriors can't live long. But if that's the case, how did that Jianzhou warrior survive for centuries? Is the martial alliance bluffing to deceive the world? If it's a lie, it might fool ordinary people at best, but it can't fool the court. Yet the court has tacitly allowed the martial alliance's existence, indicating some level of wariness. That former rebel leader might actually still be alive. Then the question lies with the Dafeng dynasty. What caused Dafeng's high-ranking warriors to be unable to achieve longevity? Su Qian turned to Zhongli, sitting cross-legged on the other side. Senior sister Zhong, I just thought of a question. Zhongli turned her messy-haired head, her eyes peering through the tangled strands, staring at him. Su Qian asked, how did Dafeng's founding emperor die? Zhongli replied calmly, he died of old age. Su Qian choked for a moment. But, is a peak warrior's lifespan really the same as an ordinary person's? Zhongli said in a ringing voice. I'm not a warrior, I don't know. She felt guilty for not being able to answer Su Qian, feeling apologetic. Su Qian sighed. Oh well, never mind. It's not like I have to get an answer anyway. He blew out the candle, took off his shoes, and climbed into bed, teasing with a smile, come sleep together. Senior sister Zhong, still a pure maiden, ignored him. The geography of the 9 provinces records that Jianzhou has a mountain. In the mountain lives a beast with a human face, thin body, 6 tails, able to swallow the moon, called Chuanrong. Chuanrong Mountain is the headquarters of the Martial Alliance, and also the martial people's sacred mountain in their hearts. Su Qian, guarding Chuanrong, along with his master and the Tower Master, arrived at Chuanrong Mountain by carriage. The Myriad Flowers Tower is dominated by women, each one breathtakingly beautiful, all charming and delicate. Those with good talent stay as direct disciples. Those with lesser talent are married off. Thus, over the past century, most notable factions in Jianzhou have some marital ties with the Myriad Flowers Tower. The beautiful woman instructed her disciple. This time, Master brought you out to see the world. Remember not to show off. Just be a bystander. Rongrong, even among the crowd of beauties, stood out. Rongrong nodded first, then said somewhat defiantly, Master, I'm already at 6th rank. The beautiful woman shook her head. 6th rank isn't enough to stand out. In the events to come, only those above 5th rank can participate. Below 5th rank, they're likely just cannon fodder. Before the carriage, she asked, do you know of the Earth sect? Rongrong nodded repeatedly. The 3 sects of the Taoist school are celestial giants in the martial world, the top forces in the 9 provinces. The 3 sects together are a force even the court fears to some extent. The beautiful woman's expression turned serious. Whispering, I heard from the Tower Master, a group of Earth sect Taoists have been nurturing a plant called the 9-colored lotus in Jianzhou, a treasure. Not long ago, the treasure matured, radiating light into the sky. Leader Chao went to demand the lotus root and was refused, fighting with the Earth sect Taoists. Afterward, the Martial Alliance summoned the major factions, intending to pay tribute. Rongrong was shocked. What is Leader Chao doing? Even if the Martial Alliance, it absolutely can't afford to offend the Earth sect of the Taoist school. The beautiful woman nodded worriedly. Leader Chao is a man of great talent and vision. With a keen eye, he dares to do this for a reason. We just don't know it. At that moment, Rongrong heard the Tower Master leading ahead, her soft, cool, and enchanting voice drifting over. The women of the Myriad Flowers Tower dress rather boldly, and in the scorching summer, they wear particularly light clothing. The Tower Master often wears a light veil. With just a pair of fox-like, enchanting eyes and a graceful figure, she's been hailed by the outside world as the Flower Queen of Myriad Flowers Tower. Her charm is evident. Soon, they reached the Martial Alliance. The Tower Master approached the Alliance's steward, leading them into the courtyard. The others stayed outside the courtyard. Rongrong quietly looked around, spotting many familiar faces behind the large courtyard. Those carrying swords on their backs were disciples of the Mo Pavilion, young Master Lu and his master among them. Those in green robes were from the Divine Fist Gang, a gang whose members punched with precise technique. Recently, they'd taken in many bold and flamboyant female disciples. Those in striking attire were from the Thousand Mechanisms sect, skilled in using various hidden weapons and poisons. Their methods sinister and hard to counter. Those shrouded in black robes were from the Flying Dagger sect. Their flying daggers both hidden weapons and not. Rumor has it their sect leader can wield 108 flying daggers. Rongrong silently withdrew her gaze, noting the martial world factions present. There were as many as 18 organizations. Those who could answer the Martial Alliance's call and gather here were all experts. Absolutely no small fry. From this, it seems, the Alliance leader is determined to claim the 9-colored lotus. Time passed minute by minute. Over an hour later, the Tower Master of Myriad Flowers Tower emerged first, followed by other sect leaders and gang heads. Rongrong peered through the open doors of the council hall, seeing a tall, burly middle-aged man, sitting on a high chair inside. Wearing a purple robe, with intricate, layered cloud patterns embroidered on it, the beautiful woman quietly scolded, "Don't stare." Rongrong immediately lowered her head. She hadn't dared look at the man's face to begin with, and being scolded made her even more afraid. They arrived at the lodging arranged for myriad flowers. The tower master summoned several elders, including the beautiful woman, to discuss matters inside. By dusk, the beautiful woman returned to Rong, who immediately pulled her master back to the room, closed the doors and windows, asking urgently, "Master, what's going on?" The beautiful woman pondered for a long while, slowly saying, "The situation is clear now. The Earth Sect Taoists hiding in Jianzhou are rebels of the Earth Sect. They stole the 9-colored lotus, relying on the Martial Alliance's protection to hide, evading the Earth Sect's pursuit. Not long ago, when the treasure matured, it caused a phenomenon. The Earth Sect came chasing after it. But because of this, the Martial Alliance reached an agreement with Leader Chao to jointly suppress the Earth Sect rebels for revenge and seize the lotus root. Leader Chao promised the Tower Master that when they nurture the 9-colored lotus to maturity in the future, all participants would get a share of the lotus seeds. You might not know, these lotus seeds are rare treasures, able to awaken all things. Even ordinary iron can gain a spirit. Of course, the lotus seeds mature once every 60 years, a long cycle. Leader Chao also promised other benefits. Rong frowned. Such a treasure, anyone would covet it. If that's the case, why did Leader Chao summon us to chew? With the Martial Alliance's forces combined with the Earth Sect, wouldn't it be easy to wipe out those rebel Taoists? The beautiful woman nodded approvingly. Those rebel sect Taoists are naturally no threat. They could be crushed with a flip of the hand. What Leader Chao truly guards against is the Earth Sect. Untrustworthy words. On the other side, at the Mo Pavilion's resting place, young Master Lu exclaimed in surprise, "That lotus seed is truly so miraculous." His master wiped his beloved long sword, calmly saying, "Naturally, a treasure of the Earth Sect, no matter how miraculous. If I could get a lotus seed, I'd use it to awaken this sword." Young Master Lu's gaze fell on the magical weapon that once belonged to him, tears of envy welling up. He nodded vigorously. "When the lotus seed matures, that's 60 years from now. Master, rest assured, I'll take good care of it. In the future, it'll be our lineage's peerless divine weapon, passed down through generations." His master smiled faintly. The pavilion master said, "That rebel Earth Sect Taoist isn't particularly strong, but we can't take chances. You shouldn't join in this time. Just watch from the sidelines." Time flew by, and a week passed in Jianzhou. The local authorities were alarmed to discover that recently many martial world figures had come to Jianzhou, gathering in inns, taverns, and brothels, spreading word that a treasure would soon appear in Jianzhou. The Jianzhou prefect only then realized the gravity of the situation. The authorities most despised martial world gatherings, as they easily sparked trouble. They immediately mobilized all available forces to bolster defenses, stationing them outside the city on standby, then sent people to gather intelligence. Surprisingly, they easily learned the location of the treasure's emergence, a manor in the distant suburbs of Jianzhou City. The Jianzhou authorities breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the chaos didn't happen inside the city, they couldn't care less if the martial world figures killed each other in a certain manner. The fair-skinned, beautiful white lotus climbed the tower, saying helplessly. Just now, another group of martial world figures fell into the maze, knocked out and tied up by the disciples. Over this period, we've captured dozens of. These people aren't worth killing. Killing them would be slaughtering the innocent, but sparing them is also a hidden danger. What should we do? Taoist Golden Lotus sighed. This is Black Lotus deliberately spreading rumors. White Lotus sighed helplessly. If it were any other faction, other organizations in this situation wouldn't hesitate to kill as a warning, to intimidate the rabble. But we can't do that, because the Earth Sect cultivates merit. We can't kill without reason, or it will spawn inner demons, leading us to fall into the demonic path. Black Lotus knows this and spreads the rumors, drawing in countless martial world figures. Taoist Golden Lotus smiled lightly. No rush, no rush. We're waiting for one person. If he comes, 80% of this rabble will scatter. The female Taoist White Lotus was eager to know which martial world experts Taoist Golden Lotus had chosen as holders of the Earth Book fragments. Rumor has it they're all rising stars with great potential. They'll be key players for Golden Lotus in eliminating threats in the future. But the issue is, these young people are rising stars, no matter how strong they are. How strong can they be? Unless each one is 4th rank. Otherwise, she didn't believe these youngsters could hold off the Earth Sect's fallen Lotus priests, could stop Black Lotus's forces, could fend off the Martial Alliance's troops. But Taoist Golden Lotus seemed very confident in the Heaven and Earth society he'd formed. White Lotus felt both anxious and expectant. Young talents from across the 9 provinces, too numerous to count. Like carp crossing the river, she couldn't guess who the young people Golden Lotus had chosen were. Over at the Martial Alliance, Chao Qingyang, clad in a purple robe, left the courtyard alone, heading toward the back mountain. Over 40 years old, with regular features, sharp and piercing eyes, his face perfectly matched that of a strategist. About this alliance leader, there's a widely discussed rumor in Jianzhou's martial world. It said the previous alliance leader was obsessed with physiognomy, and once, by chance, he met Chao Qingyang, who was then just a minor figure in the Martial Alliance. He encountered Chao Qingyang, then a mere grunt in the Martial Alliance, and declared, This boy has an extraordinary face. A rare thick earth physiognomy, 1 in a million. Round heavens, square earth. The thick earth bears all things. Those with thick earth physiognomy are flawless in virtue, able to lead heroes. He took him as a disciple, passing down his martial arts, and eventually handing the position of alliance leader to him. Whether physiognomy holds truth or not, the previous alliance leader's judgment was indeed spot on. In terms of martial achievement, Chao Qingyang is Jianzhou's top warrior, the undisputed leader of the martial rankings. Qingyang trekked through the forest for a quarter of an hour, when suddenly the view opened up before him, revealing a massive cliff wall. At the base of the towering cliff was a stone gate, seemingly sealed for countless ages, never opened. The moment Chao Qingyang stepped out of the woods, he keenly noticed 2 red lanterns light up at the cliff's peak, shining on him briefly, then extinguishing. That was Chuanrong. Chao Qingyang approached the stone gate, saying in a steady, respectful tone, "Old ancestor, I will seize the 9-colored lotus root for you, to help you break through your seclusion." His words fell, and a long silence followed, but no response came from within the gate. Chao Qingyang continued, "Since the Shanghai Pass campaign 20 years ago, Dafeng's national strength has been steadily declining. The court's control over the provinces has sharply weakened. Disasters plague every region. Your disciple has a premonition that great chaos is coming." Finally, an aged, ethereal voice sounded from within. "Is Dafeng's emperor still pursuing the Tao?" Chao Qingyang replied calmly, "Yes." A cold sneer came through the door's crack, the voice dripping with disdain. Chao Qingyang continued, "Recently, news came back from the capital. The king of the north, who guarded the border to reach the peak of second rank, massacred 380,000 people in Chuzhou city, and was slain in Chuzhou by a mysterious powerhouse." The voice responded, "Well slain." Chao Qingyang went on, "Afterward, Yuan Jing covered up the crime, killing the Chuzhou official who went to the capital to appeal, and shielding Du Guo, one of the main culprits." The voice grew deeper. "The court officials and censors did nothing." Chao Qingyang replied calmly, "Yes." As his words fell, he suddenly felt the ground tremble faintly beneath his feet, the stone gate shaking as well. Dust falling rapidly. The 2 lanterns on the cliff lit up again. Staring coldly at him, Chao Qingyang quickly said, "Old ancestor, calm your anger. There's more to the story." The mountain's trembling stopped. The 2 red lanterns on the cliff extinguished mysteriously. Chao Qingyang let out a breath, his dignified face showing clear signs of relief. He continued, "Later, a silver-ranked night watcher stormed the palace, captured Duke Hugua, denounced the emperor's crimes, denounced the king of the north's crimes, and beheaded the 2 involved dukes at the marketplace." No sound came from within the gate for a long time, silence lasting a quarter of an hour, until an ethereal sigh echoed. "Since ancient times, warriors are the most detestable. Since ancient times, warriors are the most guiltless." Chao Qingyang thought for a moment and explained, "Old ancestor, that silver-ranked night watcher didn't die." This time, the deep, ethereal voice carried a hint of curiosity. Chao Qingyang continued, "This man's name is Su Qian, a night watcher, a figure who rose to prominence last year. If you'd like to hear, old ancestor, your disciple can tell you about him, as long as you don't find me tiresome." The aged voice carried a trace of amusement. "I've been secluded here for centuries, ignorant of the world's landscapes, unaware of the 9 provinces' martial world. Aside from hearing you ramble every now and then, the rest of the time is dreadfully dull." Chao Qingyang said, speaking clearly, "In recent years, the most interesting figure in the martial world is the flying swallow heroine, but the most astonishing in the court is this silver-ranked hero named Su Qian." He then recounted, from the year of the imperial exams, Su Qian's rise, one event after another, detailing each story carefully. The martial alliance's dominance over Jianzhou's martial world, feared by officials and tolerated by the court, naturally has its unique strengths. What Chao Qingyang prided himself on most wasn't the numerous experts under his command, nor the 20,000 cavalry, but the intelligence network he built single-handedly. Peddlers, wanderers, and martial world drifters. This intelligence network of ordinary folk, in Chao Qingyang's view, while not as refined as that green-robed night watcher's cases, surpassed them in grassroots information gathering. The old ancestor inside the stone gate listened patiently, following the rise of a small figure, listening with rapt interest. The aged voice chuckled, "Interesting, interesting. If this boy doesn't fall prematurely, Dafeng will gain another peak warrior." Chao Qingyang replied calmly, "Rumors in the martial world say, this boy's talent rivals the king of the north." The aged voice sighed, "Compared to the king of the north, I'd rather see a warrior like the Su boy emerge. Warriors defy the world with strength. The more lawless they are, the purer their resolve, because warriors cultivate themselves. The king of the north was a pure warrior, which is why he reached such heights. But precisely because of that, he committed the atrocity of massacring a city. Thus, since ancient times, warriors are the most detestable. This Su boy might also be a lawless one, someone who acts only to ease his conscience, which is why he'd wield his blade for an unrelated girl against a superior. He'd stand against countless rebels in a moment of passion. How many rebels was it again? Chao Qingyang recalled for a moment and answered. He killed over 200 rebels. The aged voice said, "Didn't you just say he held off 10,000 rebels alone?" Chao Qingyang's face twitched slightly. "Some say 8,000. Some say 5,000. Others say 10,000 or 20,000. The rumors are too many. I must have remembered wrong." The aged voice hummed in acknowledgement, including this Chuzhou massacre case. Everyone feared it. The imperial authority dared not act, yet he alone dared to stand up in righteous fury. Thus, since ancient times, warriors are the most guiltless. Chao Qingyang respectfully said, I'll remember the old ancestors' teachings. Pausing for a moment, he brought up the true purpose of this visiting. The Earth Sect's 9-colored lotus is in Jianzhou. It'll mature in a few days. I want to seize the lotus root to help you break through, old ancestor. But the Earth Sect's fallen priests are formidable, though not worth fearing. Your disciple has 1 foot in 3rd rank, yet the other half remains stubbornly out of reach. I fear I'm powerless against the Earth Sect priests. Please assist me, old ancestor. Sigh came from within the gate. The leaders of the heaven, earth, and human sects have always been 2nd rank. How can I assist you? Chao Qingyang added. Old ancestor, it's only an avatar coming. At most 3rd rank. At that moment, a drop of orange-yellow blood squeezed through the stone gate's crack, striking Chao Qingyang's forehead. Morning. Sunlight bathed the earth, bringing strong, vibrant warmth. Su Qian woke up just in time, yawning uncomfortably while muttering to himself. It's been a while since I last visited Fuxiang. I really miss her. After dressing neatly, he woke Zhongli, who was on a nearby soft couch, calling her to wash up and brush their teeth together. The two squatted under the eaves, brushing with bamboo toothbrushes, mouths full of foam. At that moment, Zhongli suddenly said out of nowhere, the truly top-tier magical artifacts aren't defined by the arrays inscribed in them, but by the spirit within the artifact. Then she tilted her head, silently watching him. Su Qian frowned and grumbled. If you've got something to say, finish it. Don't just give me a look and expect me to get it. Zhongli mumbled, oh, twice, unclearly, took a sip of water, spit out the foam, and said softly, that blade your teacher gave you has the frame of a peerless divine weapon, but lacks a matching spirit. Su Qian's heart stirred, and then Zhongli earnestly suggested, you must get the lotus seed. It can awaken weapons, letting your blade birth a spirit. Weapon with a spirit will become a true instrument of slaughter. One of the 9 provinces' top magical treasures, like the Jinghua sword and the Earth Book, all of which possess spirits. In other words, birthing a spirit is the foundation for entering the ranks of the 9 provinces' top magical treasures. Exactly. If the blade your teacher gave you can gain a spirit, the physical invincibility of high-ranking warriors won't be so absolute. Su Qian's heart raced. Right. Why didn't I think of that before? The lotus seed can awaken all things so naturally it can awaken my blade. If the black gold longsword births a spirit paired with my heaven and earth slash, it won't just be invincible among peers. I might even kill across an entire rank. Once I truly reach 5th rank, I might be able to take on a 4th rank warrior, even if peak 4th rank is out of reach. Ordinary 4th rankers shouldn't be a problem. By that logic, if I reach 4th rank, won't my offensive techniques rank among the best in my tier? What I lack most now is real combat power, and a weapon is part of that power, Zhongli said in her soft voice. Once a blade spirit is born, it's no longer a lifeless object. You nurture it daily, and it'll recognize you, unusable by others. You have the Earth Book fragment. You should understand. Su Qian was about to say something, when suddenly a familiar palpitation hit him. Assaulting him in that moment, Su Qian frowned, dropped the bamboo toothbrush, and pulled out the Earth Book fragment to check the message. Taoist Golden Lotus said, everyone, head to Jianzhou immediately. The situation's a bit dire. Chu Yuanjin replied instantly. What do you mean by dire? Taoist, what's happening in Jianzhou? Golden Lotus replied immediately. It's hard to explain quickly. There are a lot of enemies this time. The situation's very bad. You'd best come over to discuss in person. Su Qian's eyebrows shot up, with Zhongli's words in mind. He was now determined to get the lotus seed, because it could grant him a peerless divine weapon, instead of just gaining a troublesome... Su Qian immediately grabbed Zhongli's arm. I need to leave right away. I'll take you back to Xianjian first. Just then, he saw Li Miaojin step out of her room with her flying sword. Su Qian called out, I'll take her back to Xianjian. Li Miaojin gave a slight wave. Zhongli, plagued by misfortune, even in normal times, required careful handling, let alone on a battlefield. Su Qian mounted his beloved little mare, taking Zhongli back to Xianjian. He was about to rendezvous with Li Miaojin, when a bold idea suddenly surged in his mind. Yang Qianhuan is a 4th-rank sorcerer. His offensive skills may not match a warrior's, but he's a master of arrays, and has magical artifacts. Su Qian watched Zhongli descend the stone steps, about to vanish from sight. He quickly shouted, Senior Sister Zheng, is Senior Brother Yang down there? Zhongli turned back and nodded. Su Qian yelled, his voice booming and echoing. Senior Brother Yang. Yang Qianhuan's irritated voice shot back. Shut up. What do you want? Su Qian shouted immediately. I need your help, Senior Brother. To his surprise, Yang Qianhuan cut him off. No way, get lost. Su Qian sighed helplessly. I'm going to stand alone against all, undefeatable by thousands, to wipe out the rabble, to awe the martial world. I'm going to the sacred land of martial arts in Jianzhou, to tell the martial world their one thing. All of you here are trash. As soon as his words fell, his vision blurred, and Yang Qianhuan was suddenly standing before him, head bowed, urgently saying, Let's go, let's go.